You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely unseen. You laugh at dinner tables, reply in group chats, go home exhausted, and somehow it still feels like nobody really knows you. Why? Because most of us are addicted to noise. The kind that makes us feel alive for a moment, but emptier by night. We've mistaken connection for company and silence for loneliness. But here's the twist most people never learn. Solitude isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of strength. It's the quiet space where you stop performing, stop pleasing, and finally start becoming. When you stop running from your own thoughts, something shifts. You begin to realize the world never made you tired. Pretending did. And maybe the reason your life feels heavy isn't because you carry too much, but because you've never learned to put it down in peace. So today, we go deeper. We'll explore 6 truths about solitude, why it isn't isolation, but transformation. If you've been feeling drained by people, noise, or endless demands, this one's for you. Why being alone doesn't make you broken, it makes you whole. Let's begin. 1. Solitude isn't isolation, it's self-return. What if being alone isn't a punishment, but a homecoming? A woman stands in her kitchen after her son leaves for college. The house feels too quiet. She sits by the window, coffee in hand. Nothing left to do for anyone, just her. And the silence feels almost violent. She notices the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the chair, the sound of her own heartbeat echoing in the kitchen. It's strange and strangely alive. But maybe that silence isn't empty. Maybe it's sacred. We've been taught that stillness means something's wrong, that if you're not talking, you're wasting time, that if you're alone, you're behind. So we keep calling, scrolling, scheduling, terrified that peace might feel like absence. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." I thought freedom meant doing whatever I wanted. Now I see freedom is staying calm when no one's watching. It's being at peace when there's nothing to prove. You'll realize there's no better company than your own peace. Because solitude doesn't separate you from life. It returns you to it. It's not isolation, it's integration. Imagine your mind as a house that's been too crowded for too long. Solitude is the moment you open the windows, let the dust fly, and finally breathe again. At first it's messy, then it's real. If you've ever felt like you're losing yourself in people, try losing people for a while and see what comes back. Because solitude doesn't take anything away from you. It gives you back the pieces you left behind. So here's your first quiet move. 10 minutes a day, no phone, no music, no mask. Just sit and let your thoughts walk out of hiding. At first, your mind will shout, then it will whisper, and in that whisper, you'll start to hear your real name again. A man who makes peace with his own company becomes untouchable. 2. Society teaches you to fear solitude. Why do we fear stillness more than lies? Because silence introduces us to ourselves. And most of us have been strangers for years. From childhood, we were trained to fill every quiet second. Talk more, do more, post more. Society didn't just give us distraction, it made us dependent on it. Because a noisy mind is easy to control. If you're alone on a Saturday night, people assume you're broken. If you say you enjoy your own company, they look concerned. But maybe they're not worried about you. Maybe they're terrified of what your calm reveals about their chaos. Seneca once wrote, "He who fears solitude fears himself." And isn't that true? We don't fear being alone. We fear seeing what we become when there's no one left to perform for. Most people think solitude is something strange until they hear how Jeff Bezos makes his biggest decisions. He takes long walks alone, no meetings, no screens, just thinking in silence. He calls it his clarity time, the space where real insight appears. Maybe the truth is, most of us aren't afraid of silence. We're afraid of what it might reveal about the life we've been pretending to love. Yet if any of us did the same, people would call it being antisocial or lazy. That's how inverted society has become. We fear the silence that vision is born from. When you spend too much time with the crowd, you start losing your own voice. And that's the quiet tragedy of our age. We've mistaken imitation for identity. We copy each other's ambitions, buy each other's dreams, then call it purpose. Humor me for a second. We live in a world that celebrates authenticity but punishes silence. A world that tells you to find yourself, then mocks you for eating alone. If irony had a face, it would be scrolling right now. I once filled every hour so I wouldn't have to feel the question whispering inside me. Who are you when nobody needs you? The truth is, solitude doesn't make you weird. It makes you wise. Because only in quiet can you tell the difference between what's truly yours and what was planted by others. Solitude isn't rebellion, it's recovery. It's the moment your mind stops being a marketplace and becomes a monastery. The day you stop needing noise to feel alive, you start hearing the sound of your real power. 3. Alone time heals the wounds no one can see. Some wounds don't bleed. They hide under laughter, under work, under "I'm fine." But the body remembers even when the mind forgets. After a breakup, after failure, after loss, we rush to move on. We distract ourselves, hoping time will do the healing for us. But time doesn't heal what you refuse to feel. It only buries it deeper. And that's okay. Healing isn't about speed, it's about honesty. I once met a man who had just gone through a divorce. He didn't run away from the memories. He cleaned his apartment one room at a time. Every drawer was a memory. Keep or release. By the end of the week, his home looked the same, but his heart didn't. Healing doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it's just sitting still until the shaking stops. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful than your own soul, if you make it so." And that's the truth. Peace isn't found, it's built. Inside the silence we've been avoiding. Solitude is the workshop of recovery, but the quiet can be cruel before it's kind. When you finally stop running, the ghosts you've been escaping catch up. Memories, guilt, shame, regret. They all sit down beside you like uninvited guests. And here's the paradox. That's exactly when healing begins. A man who can sit with his own pain without running has already learned life's hardest lesson. That line isn't romantic, it's raw. Because you can't truly grow until you stop outsourcing your pain. I remember a woman I met while traveling alone. She had lost her husband a year earlier. She told me she wasn't traveling to escape. She was learning to listen again. To my grief, she said, and to the part of me that still wants to live. That's what solitude does. It introduces you to the voice you muted to survive. Contrary to what people say, healing isn't about forgetting. It's about facing what hurts long enough to stop flinching. You don't rise above pain. You walk through it until it loses its power. Sometimes peace doesn't roar. Sometimes it just whispers, "You made it through another day." When you stop running from your pain, you realize it was never chasing you. It was waiting to teach you. If this part spoke to you, tell me, what's the lesson your pain has been trying to teach you? Someone else might need your words more than you know. And if this message found you, share it, so it finds the next soul who's ready to heal. 4. Solitude creates clarity and power. Noise makes you look busy. Silence makes you dangerous. Most people confuse movement with momentum. They think doing more means being more. But solitude shows you the opposite. The fewer voices you follow, the sharper your own becomes. A man spends all day in meetings, hearing everyone's opinions. By night, he can't tell what he truly believes anymore. Then one weekend, his phone dies. No calls, no emails, no calendar. At first, panic, then peace. By Monday, he realizes his life has been running on everyone else's urgency. That's the first gift of solitude, clarity. When the noise fades, the truth speaks. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, once said, "Man conquers himself before he conquers the world." And he was right. You can't lead others if you keep losing yourself to their expectations. But solitude doesn't just clear your mind. It refines your instincts. You begin to see patterns, motives, truths hidden in plain sight. Because you're no longer blinded by belonging. You can only be yourself when you're alone. That's when the noise finally stops lying to you. He didn't mean loneliness is noble. He meant solitude removes distortion. When you're alone, no one is feeding your ego or your doubt. You finally hear the raw signal, not the static. We live in a time where everyone's trying to be seen and no one's trying to see clearly. We chase visibility instead of vision. I once thought power was about control, money, networks, opportunities. And then life showed me a quiet proof of that truth. Keanu Reeves, one of the most famous men alive, once sat alone on a park bench, eating a sandwich in silence. No entourage, no performance, just peace. And I realized real power is self-control, the ability to stay grounded when the world keeps shouting your name. Solitude is like cleaning a fogged lens. Nothing changes outside, yet everything sharpens. You start seeing people for who they are, choices for what they cost, and your own heart for what it truly wants. And that's when the world's manipulation stops working. You can't be sold fear when you've already made peace with being alone. A man who thinks alone becomes unstoppable because clarity itself is power. You see the pattern, don't you? Solitude strips away noise, and what's left is truth about you, about love, about everything you've been afraid to face. Let's go deeper. 5. Solitude reveals the truth about relationships. They say love shows who you are, but solitude shows who they were. When you spend enough time alone, something changes. You start to see which relationships were real and which ones only work because you kept shrinking yourself to fit them. I learned that the hard way. There was a time when my ex Mara and I tried to save a relationship that was already ending. We thought effort could replace honesty. But life isn't a fairy tale. There's no fairy godmother waiting to turn your heartbreak into a golden carriage. No pumpkin turning into magic. No one rescues you. You outgrow the illusion. You pick yourself up, and you learn to walk without the glass slippers. The moment you stop waiting for miracles, you start becoming one. Because sometimes solitude isn't the absence of love. It's where you finally learn what love was supposed to feel like. If your peace depends on someone else's validation, it's not peace. It's a deal you'll always lose. Because peace built on someone else's validation isn't peace, it's permission. After we separated, solitude became my teacher. I stopped searching for the one and started asking whether I had ever been one with myself. That's when I understood. Love without solitude is like music without silence. No rhythm, no rest, just noise. Lao Tzu said, "Care about people's approval and you will be their prisoner." How many of us are still imprisoned by the need to be chosen? We call it romance, but often it's dependency in disguise. Humor me. Most relationships aren't broken. They're just overcrowded with expectations. We keep negotiating for love like it's a contract when all it really asks is space. Here's the solitude doesn't make you colder. It makes you honest. Because when you know how to be alone, You stop begging for connection and start choosing it. Try this. Spend one day in invisible mode. Don't text. Don't check who's thinking of you. Just watch who crosses your mind. That's who you actually care about. Sometimes walking away isn't rejection. It's respect for your peace, for your truth, for the version of you that refuses to beg. And here's the quiet miracle. When you no longer chase love, the kind that's meant for you starts walking your way. When you master being alone, every relationship becomes a choice, not a need. 6. Solitude makes you untouchable. They say the strongest man is the one who can lift others, but I've learned the strongest man is the one who can lift himself when no one's watching. When everything collapses, career, marriage, certainty, most people panic. But there's always one man who doesn't. He goes quiet. He vanishes for a while. People whisper that he's lost, but what they don't see is that he's rebuilding, brick by brick, from the inside out. I once met a man like that. He lost his job, his house, his reputation. If you've been there too, remember, rock bottom isn't punishment. It's the place you rebuild from. He told me, for 40 days I didn't talk to anyone. I walked every morning, wrote every night, and stopped explaining myself. 3 years later, he owned a business built on calm, not pressure. He didn't rise again because luck found him. He rose because silence rebuilt him. Chrysippus wrote, "No man is truly free who has not learned to rule himself." And solitude is the training ground for that kind of rule. You can't be manipulated by the world once you've learned how to govern your own mind. Despite society calling isolation weakness, yet every transformation starts there. Jesus in the desert, Buddha under the tree, leaders, artists, thinkers, all disappeared before they became who they were. Solitude isn't a pause in your life. It's the furnace that shapes it. The real hell isn't other people. It's forgetting who you are when they're around. Maybe he was only half right. Hell is not other people. It's depending on them to tell you who you are. When you finally stop chasing validation, something miraculous happens. The chaos loses power. Opinions no longer shake you. You move differently. You speak less but mean more. And that's when solitude becomes strength. Let's practice solitude gratitude ritual. Tonight, before the world goes quiet, sit with yourself for a few minutes and name 3 things solitude has given you. Maybe it's clarity after chaos. Maybe it's peace after heartbreak. Maybe it's the strength to be okay in your own skin. Write them down. That's gratitude, not for what you gained, but for what you finally stopped needing. Then read this to yourself, slowly once. I thank the silence that burned away who I was, the solitude that rebuilt who I am, and the stillness that made me untouchable. Pause, breathe in that truth. That's not just gratitude, that's rebirth. That's how the quiet becomes muscle. Maybe greatness isn't loud after all. Maybe it's slow, quiet, unseen, like roots that hold a forest through the storm. And if this message finds you, thank you for walking this path with Move or Die Stoic. Every moment you spend alone isn't a loss. It's a return to the man you were always meant to be. Most people can't sit alone in silence, but those who can rebuild entire worlds within. But you're learning to sit in that room and rebuild a kingdom no one can touch. Because the world can't break a man who already made peace with his own silence. If you're walking this path with me, make sure you stay. There's more light waiting ahead. Subscribe to Move or Die Stoic, not just for videos, but reminders to stay unshakable when life gets loud. 7. The quiet magnet. How solitude attracts the right people and opportunities. The world tells you to chase love, chase success, chase meaning. But have you ever noticed the harder you chase, the faster everything runs away? Science has been proving what ancient philosophers already knew. A study from the University of Virginia found that people who spent just 15 minutes alone each day showed a 40% increase in creative problem solving and emotional clarity. Another from Harvard and Stanford revealed that people comfortable with solitude are perceived as more confident and authentic, the very traits that attract trust and opportunity. In other words, solitude doesn't repel life. It refines your signal. When you stop begging for attention, you become attention. When you stop forcing outcomes, outcomes start finding their way toward you. Seneca wrote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, but solitude adds a missing layer." Alignment, because when your energy no longer leaks into noise, what belongs to you starts hearing your frequency again. The right people don't come when you chase them. They arrive when you're still enough to see who stays. The right paths don't appear when you plan. They unfold when you stop running. Stillness is not absence. It's gravity. Think about it. The tree doesn't chase sunlight. It stands still. It grows toward it. And because it's rooted, the light always finds it again. Funny thing, people chase success like it's Tinder. The moment you stop swiping, the right one finally shows up. Solitude doesn't make you magnetic by mystery. It makes you magnetic by clarity. The more you return to yourself, the more the world knows where to find you. The man who stops chasing doesn't lose the world. He makes the world come to him. 8. The return, bringing your light back to the world. The journey begins in silence, but it doesn't end there. After the storm, after the rebuilding, there comes a quiet strength, a calm that doesn't need to prove itself anymore. When you've lived long enough in solitude, you start seeing people differently. Not as distractions, not as threats, but as mirrors. And sometimes you see your younger self in them. The one who used to run, who used to beg, who used to fear being alone. There's a story I love. A monk spent years meditating in a cave, searching for enlightenment. When he finally attained it, his master told him, "Now go down to the marketplace and buy vegetables." The monk hesitated. "But the noise, the people." The master smiled. "If your peace breaks there, it was never peace." That's the essence of return, to bring the silence with you, not as armor, but as light. Or in today's world, to keep your peace while your phone keeps buzzing with chaos. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one, that's the call of the return." Don't preach serenity, embody it. Don't teach strength. Walk as it. You no longer need to isolate to protect your calm. You become the peace that protects itself. When the crowd screams, you listen. When the world demands, you choose. When others rush to speak, you wait until your words carry truth. And that's when solitude completes its purpose, not to make you disappear, but to make your presence unmistakable. You went into the quiet to find yourself. You return to the world so others remember they can too. That's the quiet legacy of solitude. Not the noise you make, but the calm you leave behind wherever you stand. There comes a moment when the silence no longer feels empty, when solitude stops being a wall and becomes a window. You start hearing the world again, but this time it sounds different. The noise doesn't own you anymore. The chaos doesn't shake you. You've learned to walk through life with calm hands and a clear mind. And maybe that's what greatness really is. Not being louder, richer, or followed, but being free. If this video reached you, if some part of you felt seen in the quiet, thank you for walking this far with Move or Die Stoic. You didn't come here to escape the world. You came here to remember your place in it. Walk quietly, my friend. The world will feel your peace before it hears your name. And if you felt something here, let your peace ripple. Like, share, or just leave a word below. Now go live quietly and let your peace make the noise.